it might not be something that you love, but you're really good at it. So finding something that you're good at, and you're only going to find that out by trying new things. And most people, they're afraid to try new things, so they end up being stuck, with what they got.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I'm your host, Yona Weiss, and I have with me today someone who I am privileged to be, sitting across from virtually, and that's my friend Will Smith. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing good, doing great, man. Appreciate you having me on the show today.
It's my pleasure. I mean, how often do I get to speak with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No, I'm just kidding. It's a different Will Smith. I'm sure you've gotten that before, right? I'm not the first person to make that joke. It's like people asking me like, hey, Yona or Jonah, how is it like living in the whale? Like that's. Yeah, absolutely. But Will, just to give you a little background, Will is a former professional athlete, played in the NFL for 8 years, I believe.
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years. Okay, well, that's long enough for it to play in the NFL for most people.
Yeah.
Since then, he's gotten very deeply involved in commercial real estate. He has his broker's license. He is the CEO of Onyx Capital Investments, doing deals, closing deals, trying to add value, the host of an incredible podcast as well, which, I was fortunate enough to be a guest on, and I hope you guys will check that out. It's called Creating Generational
Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate.
Generational Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate.
There you go.
I was like stumbling over that.
Yeah.
Will, thanks for coming. I have such admiration for professional athletes. Not necessarily because of, what some other people might be, admire them. And I know a lot of people idolize athletes and things like that, which to me, that's not where my admiration lies. My admiration lies in the fact that to become, the top 1%, or top, 10th of 1% of anyone in their profession takes a tremendous amount of dedication, self-sacrifice, commitment, and perseverance to get to where you got to. So I commend you on that.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. A lot of hard work.
When did you know that you wanted to become, you wanted to go pro, or you wanted to be a football player?
Yeah. Well, it's actually interesting. When I was in high school, my whole mindset was I'm going to the NBA. I was going to be the next LeBron James, but I'm 6'6", and at the time I was 225, and one of the football coaches came to me because I did not like football. I didn't want to play football. And he came to me, he said, look, man, you're talking about you want to go to the NBA, 6'6", NBA, man. He said, you're a point guard. And at the time I was playing power forward,
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, but 6'6", football, you D1 athlete right now. And I was like, well, shucks, that makes a lot of sense. And I bought into it. And, went out there, started busting my tail, got a full ride to East Carolina University, and, went there. And I played every position on the line. If you don't think about it, I came in as a D tackle, then I played DN, and then they were like, well, look, man, come over here and play tight end, and you can, catch some touchdowns and do your little end zone dances. So that they won me over with that. But then I found out I was a blocker, so they said, well, look, man, you're going to be a lineman. And that's when I became an offensive lineman, and that's when I really found my one thing that I was really good at. And, I got all these accolades, and then I started getting scouts to look at me, and, long story short, I made it to the NFL after that.
Wow. That's incredible because it really, shows your versatility.
Yeah.
You were able to try out a bunch of different things. I mean, forget the fact that, changing up from doing something that you thought was going to be your dream and then just, kind of giving that up.
Yeah.
Being humble enough to take the advice of someone who saw more objectively.
Yeah.
That itself is huge, a big takeaway lesson there. But, changing it up and playing every different position. And, I'm sure there's millions and millions of kids out there who their dream is to become a professional athlete, right?
Right.
I mean, I know when I was a kid, I loved to play sports. I was pretty good, believe it or not, for a little white kid. I was I was pretty good at some things. We played soccer and hockey and basketball, whatever. never professional. Obviously, I played high school,
Right.
but it didn't go beyond that. But one thing that I did relate to very much was the idea of trying out all different positions.
Right.
And literally in soccer, for example, I played every single position, including the goalie, and just trying everything out because you don't know what you're good at until you try.
Right. Absolutely. And it's one of those things that, it might not be something that you love, but you're really good at it. And that was the case for me, man. I didn't love football, but man, that was the thing that I was good at, so that says something there, man, finding something that you're good at. And you're only going to find it out by trying new things. And most people, they're afraid to try new things. So they end up being stuck, with what they got.
And you transitioned, pretty shortly after your NFL career into real estate. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
How is that, decision process? Obviously, you can't play professional sports forever. It's capped out for most people.
Yeah.
At a certain age, and especially football.
Yeah.
The intensity of the sport, creates a lot of injuries and a lot of things come along with it. How did you decide that real estate or going into investing in real estate and things like that was your next move?
That's a very good question. Like I said, man, I was a really good college player, and I anticipated being drafted maybe 5th, 6th round, but unfortunately I did not get drafted. And this was the year of the lockout. So I didn't get drafted. There was a lockout. I didn't know what the heck was going to happen. And I'm just kind of sitting around trying to figure out what was going to be next. So I was like, man, talking about work ethic, man, I was like, man, I got to do something. I can't just be sitting around. I got to make some money. I didn't get no signing bonus or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually been interesting. I started selling knives for this company called Cutco.
Mm-hmm.
And they got very fine kitchen cutlery, man. And I was one of the top sales reps for the company while I was there. So that gave me that entrepreneurial mindset of, man, like if I can get out here and hustle like this and make some money, I can do this on my own, So, long story short with that, I kept working out, lockout ended, and I went to the Washington Redskins as an undrafted free agent, bust my tail day in, day out. I mean, literally gave it everything I had every day, and I was fortunate enough to make the team. But not being drafted, I feel like was one of the best things that happened to me because it helped me see that, man, this thing ain't forever. I started thinking immediately, man, I got to do something else. The whole time I was playing football, man, I was always thinking, hey, what am I going to do when I'm done? And, while I was playing, I was buying duplexes and townhomes, things like that. And, it was easy. I was like, man, I'm out here playing football, but yet I'm still getting a check every month.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's powerful. So that's what really drew me to real estate initially. And then when I was done, obviously I didn't play 10, 15 years and I never got a huge contract. So, I couldn't just kick my feet up for the rest of my life and sit back. So I was like, man, I got to figure something out. And that's when I said, well, shoot, man, I understand real estate. I understand the transaction side of it. So I became a broker and I started helping people buy and sell real estate on the residential side initially. And then I switched over to the commercial side. And now I'm over in North Carolina helping people buy and sell, apartment complexes, investment property.
That's awesome. Did you see any of your teammates or any colleagues, also taking that route in investing or thinking about what's going to be life after professional sports?
You had a few guys that kind of dabble in this and dabble in that. And then obviously, being in NFL, being a professional athlete, people are just going to constantly be coming to you with, hey, man, I got this great idea, or hey, man, invest in this, hey, man, invest in that. And it's constantly like people, pulling at you. So you really don't know, what's a good opportunity, what's not a good opportunity. And, that's why some people lose money. They're just like, well, hey, I just want to do something with my money. And they throw it at something that they thought, cousin Bob said, hey, man, let's go buy this laundromat or whatever it is. And they don't know what the heck they're doing. So you lose money. I hear those stories, but there's very few guys that are actively looking at real estate. And, one of the biggest reasons for that is when you're in the NFL, your whole mindset is, I need to be focused. I need to be tuned in. I need to do what I need to do to stay on this team. Like all your focus is on, man. My mindset got to be on edge every single day or your butt will get kicked out of there.
Because it's very competitive, obviously, in terms of, there's free agents and people waiting to get on that line.
Yep.
I definitely hear that. So
yep.
That probably made it very difficult for you to buy those properties that you did at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely was, it was just, like I said, man, Yeah, I realized that, my mindset had to be 100% football, but at the same time, I knew, I wasn't the freaking, best of the best. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to play no 30, 20, 30 years in the league. So I was like, man, I got to be thinking about what life looks like after football. And, that's a big challenge for a lot of guys, man. They really don't think about life after sports. There's a big disconnect there. And that's one of my goals is to educate guys and show them, hey, man, you can get into real estate and you can even do it passively at first to learn the game. And then when you get out, go full tilt in it.
It seems like a great opportunity. I mean, and so that's probably one of the reasons why you started your podcast, was to give that educational value to hopefully a lot of people who were in your shoes or are in your shoes currently, your previous shoes, that is, your cleats, whatever,
Right.
And give them the opportunity to educate themselves, to learn, because it's not forever. When you're looking at a career that has a cap on it,
right?
I can only do this for X number of years at all.
Right.
And a lot of people, from my understanding, that go through that don't have enough to retire on. There's a small percentage, of the superstars that are getting those big contracts that they may have enough to retire on when they do retire, but the vast majority of others, they don't. So I think it's an incredible resource. Are you doing anything else besides the podcast itself in order to educate people like that?
No, I mean, I got the podcast. What I'm starting to do now is I'm starting to blog. So, I got my blog on my website, untitled.capital.com, and I'm starting to blog, and I'm trying to write it in a way that is easy for people to understand because, around real estate, man, stuff can get real complex. So just trying to break it down and I guess dumb it down so anybody can look at it, man, because football players, number one, if it looks complicated, we're just going to say, man, the heck with that, So just doing that. And then, you see me on LinkedIn, man, I try to post out a lot of infographics of just, giving the benefits of real estate.
Yes. I was going to mention that because it's unique, I think, in a way, not unique entirely, but, those infographics that you do post, and I'm sure it's much more, relevant on Instagram and stuff like that. You get a lot more infographics.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not on Instagram really, so I don't really see that, but on LinkedIn, you don't see a lot of it, but they're so educational and so simple. And that's how I love it, because you're opening up these complex ideas and these concepts about, generational wealth and about, real estate investments and equity and, the tax benefits and all the things that come along with it that most people have no idea about. And especially guys who are going from, perhaps college and, getting straight into the NFL or into professional sports.
Yeah.
They're not getting that financial education from anywhere.
Right.
The huge service you're doing there. Well, awesome. What's been your biggest challenge in kind of transitioning? And obviously you transitioned from residential into commercial.
Yeah.
What's your biggest challenge in that transition?
I would say the biggest challenge, initially was two challenges. The first one was, coming from the NFL, being this star athlete, then becoming a real estate professional and trying to get people to see you and trust you as a real estate professional, not just, hey, Will Smith, the NFL player, is trying to, sell me a house. Or Will Smith, the NFL player is trying to get me to invest in XYZ. It's like, building that authority in the space to gain their trust. And that was the biggest, I say the biggest challenge, man, is just getting people to see me as a real estate professional instead of a player still.
So it's really it takes time, obviously.
Yeah.
It takes time for people to see that, and eventually they will. And I think you've already accomplished that to a great extent. And the podcast is a great platform to do that with. So
absolutely,
you're still going to have that. And I think it adds value, and it adds a component of professionalism that, hey, this is someone a bit unique.
Right.
Like you said, there aren't a ton of people out there that are doing this. And I can count maybe on my hand of those that I know that have come from professional sports and have gone full-time into real estate. And it seems to me like a no-brainer, because everyone knows, and I'm sure you know this, that the vast majority, I mean, they say even 90% of the people who have the wealthiest people in America have grown their wealth through real estate. So it makes sense for people who have a large amount of income. They're getting high paychecks, maybe not, super huge contracts, but I imagine, and what's the minimum wage, if you will, for an NFL player?
It goes up every year, but when I was a rookie, the minimum was like $450,000. but every year it goes up like $50,000 or $60,000. So I imagine now it's probably like 600.
That's crazy. So yeah. So I mean, that's certainly, in the top, 1% of income earners, or at least top 5% of income earners in the United States. You would think that someone would be giving them financial education to not just splurge that on, buying fancy cars and who knows what else that people are spending their money on.
Right. No, I mean, that's a very good point. And, the type of people that reach out to you, because, I can speak from it because I was there, is financial advisors. And, they get paid by you doing transactions in the markets. And, so they're telling you, hey, put your money here, put your money there, but they're not really showing you any way to generate, real income and start building generational wealth. They don't teach you that stuff. I mean, there's a real need for it, man. And I'm like I said, man, I'm really trying to figure out how to put some kind of platform together, whether it's just you're educating guys through, modules and a mastermind or whatever it is. But there's definitely a need for it, man.
Yeah. I think there's a guy, Hakeem Velez, who played for the Lions for a year or two.
Yeah.
And he's also trying to figure out the same thing,
yeah.
How to educate people, because he's also a real estate investor. And, he's a public speaker now and trying to educate professional athletes. So I think, maybe you guys could combine forces some way or another.
Yeah. I spoke to him, man. He's a real cool dude. Got some good stuff going on for sure.
Yeah, but there's definitely a need for it. And hey, who knows? Maybe this podcast episode will be heard by someone that will take action and make a difference, because there's a huge opportunity there. And like you said, the financial advisors that are reaching out to professional athletes, they're in it for themselves more than anything else. They get a kickback and they get a percentage of the transactions you're making. So unfortunately, that's the reality that there is. And unfortunately, the players themselves don't have enough education to realize that at the time, and are subject to just getting sucked in. Like, hey, okay, I'll put my money with someone, to make it work a little bit.
Yeah, that's just part of the story of why guys go broke. One of the other reasons is, man, you just have so many people pulling at you. Whether that's friends, hey man, let me just get $1,000 here or $5,000 for this, I'll pay you back, and then or obviously your sisters, brothers, aunts, cousins. Everybody hitting you up wanting money, and they feel like you got to give them the money. Like you're wrong if you don't give them the money. Like it's so funny, man. But once you give it to them, you'll never hear from them until they need it again. I mean, that's not all family members, but you got some out there like that, man.
It's unfortunate. Yeah, listen, to a certain extent, I can hear where they're coming from. They may be struggling, and they look to someone like you and. If only we had a rich uncle, that we could turn to, So it's kind of like a dream come true for them in a sense, but it's definitely not the right way to go about it. And I definitely hear from where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's not the type of relationship that's going to foster, a real, a giving type relationship where you're just kind of, begging me for money and I'll give you to kind of keep you away for a little while.
Right.
I can definitely hear that. So, okay. So I think we have our work cut out for us. We're going to try to figure out a way. Maybe someone listening to this can reach out to you, figure out a way how we can help educate. I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Hey, before we get to the final four, I just want to tell you about Streamlined Podcasts. Okay. I could not have a podcast if I didn't work with Streamlined Podcasts. As simple as that. These guys are my go-to. They do all the editing of these audio pieces that you guys are hearing. And I really couldn't do anything without it. I literally tried to start a podcast for about a year, and it was just daunting to me to spend time writing show notes, to do the audio recording, editing, taking out the ums, the ahs, the spaces, everything. These guys make it sound so crisp, so clear at such an affordable rate. And for my listeners and my listeners only, you're gonna be thrilled. If you're ever thinking of starting a podcast or you have a podcast, check them out at streamlinepodcasts.com. Set up a time to speak with them and use promo code WEISS, WEISS, and you can get 20% off your first month if you do end up signing up with them. I guarantee you it's going to be worth your while. I want to jump right now to the final four, Will.
Absolutely.
First question I have is, what's the worst job that you ever had?
The worst job I had, and probably the easiest job I had, I was 14 and I got a job at Sonic's. And, my only job was to make the freaking drinks and ice cream. And, my cousin came over one summer, man, and he was at home playing games every day. And, I'd be looking at him playing games, putting on my work uniform, going to work. And I just hated it because, everybody else was having fun. And I was sitting there trying to work and make some money, man. And that was my worst job just because I was wanting to have fun, but I had to go to work, So I would say that was my worst job.
I'm sure it's still instilled within you at that young age, the work ethic that you have to today. But that is really interesting. Second question, what's a book you've read that's giving you a paradigm shift?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, man, The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When I read that book, man, it really showed me the power of, number one, your mindset around making money. It's not about just a 9-to-5 and living a safe life, but, being able to use assets to pay for your liabilities. And I would say that was the biggest thing I took from it. Number one was invest in real estate. And then number two, if you want something that's a liability, you may want that fancy boat. Yeah, you can get it, but get some assets to pay for that liability. And now, living the dream.
Beautiful. Yeah. And it's no coincidence that we've had that book come up numerous times because it's so true. It's such fundamentals that we're not taught in school and as youth that, everyone is required reading. Okay.
Right.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Absolutely.
Next question. What is a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
That's an interesting question. And I like fishing. So that's my hobby, my number one hobby. But I've never been fly fishing. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to keep swinging that thing back and forth and trying to catch something. So that's something that I haven't done that I want to learn how to do is go fly fishing.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's great. It sounds like you're kind of building on something you already enjoy doing already.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Next question and final question is, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Success to me is, making it to the top. And what I mean by making it to the top is being able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, and not having to worry about, well, dang, do I got enough money for this? If I go on a long vacation, am I going to come back and everything's going to be, going to crap, So having that level of success where I can do what I want to do. And then, obviously I got a family, man, wife, 4 kids, and I just want to make sure that I leave them something. If something was to happen to me, I want to make sure that they're taken care of. So that's what success is to me, man.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can our listeners find you? I mean, you already mentioned the onyxcapitalinvestments.com. Is there another place people can find you, reach out to you?
Yeah, well, I got the podcast, Generational Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate. You can find that anywhere you can listen to music. And I got the YouTube channel with it as well. Same thing. And I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, look me up there. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. Okay.
Make sure you got the right Will Smith, right? We're not looking for anyone else.
Yeah. You can't miss me, man. I got my San Diego Chargers uniform on my profile pic. So you won't miss me.
Awesome. And where are you located now?
I'm in Greenville, North Carolina.
Greenville, North Carolina. Okay, awesome. So we're going to look up Will Smith on LinkedIn. It's going to be in the show notes. Check it out. Will, it's been a tremendous pleasure speaking with you, as always. I love that you took the opportunity to join us, and I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
I wish you tremendous continued success in your new endeavors in real estate. Not so new anymore, but new and continue building, continue growing, and continue sharing that knowledge.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
All right. And to all our listeners, thank you again for joining us. It's been awesome today. This has been one of the best episodes. And you remember that the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.